Hey guys, Jacob Perry back with you, founder and CEO of Patagonia Bee Products, on this vlog that we're doing on Patagonia, honey, beekeeping, and how we're doing things as a small artisanal business, getting this exquisite honey out there to the world. So this is episode 31, and today I want to go over, basically, it's the FAQ episode. So I'm going to go over basic questions, really the most common questions that I get at all of my demos. I do a lot of demos, tastings, samplings, whatever you want to call them, where I have a table, and I have all the honey varieties, I have spoons, I have them displayed there, and I give everybody who comes in the store, everybody who will be brave enough to try some Patagonia honey, I give them a taste of all of them, and they get to try the differences. And I get lots of questions. So I'm just going to kind of run through a list, and because I'm sure you guys have had some of these questions too. And these are what come to people's minds when they find out Patagonia honey. One of the first ones is, oh, you work for Patagonia, like the clothing brand, like the outdoor clothing brand. Nope, not working for Patagonia, different company. That company is named after the same place that our honey comes from, Patagonia. It's a part of the world. It's South America and Chile. So that's the first thing you should know. Yeah. I get often asked, especially by like younger travelers and older travelers too, people that are adventurous and think about travel. They say, "Oh, do you get to go down to Patagonia all the time? Do you get to go and meet the beekeepers and like go on vacation, for business purposes?" Well, yes, I do get to go. That's important to me to go and meet the beekeepers, spend time with them, understand the whole process, understand how the beekeeping is done, and be able to actually tell that story authentically. But I go about once a year, so I don't get to go that often. I got to run things up here. I got to sell the honey. So a lot of people ask, so next question, why are some honeys thicker than others? Especially our honeys. Our honeys are thicker than like the syrupy ones in the United States. Well, I talked about some of this in a previous episode, one of the early episodes, so I encourage you guys to check that out. But essentially, our honey is thicker because the glucose to fructose ratio is higher, right? There's more glucose to fructose than other honeys. That's the main reason. That makes it more viscous. And those are just native characteristics of the nectar. That's not the bees doing that, right? The bees are just vectors. They're nectar vectors. And then another part of it is that our honeys are not heated. They're not pasteurized. If you heat our honey, in fact, it will turn golden and syrupy, just like all the other honeys in the United States, right? Almost all the other honeys. Next question. So how do the bees go to just one flower? How do you make them go to one flower? Those are some smart bees. You've trained them well in Patagonia. Nope, they haven't trained them well. So you can't train bees, right? Turns out that, and also people will say, oh, you have these huge plantation, these monofloral crops. Not the case either. These are bees in native forests, oftentimes virgin forests. And what happens is during different seasons, let's say during the early spring, there's a specific kind of flower that will bloom predominantly before the other flowers are blooming. The bees will recognize one good nectar source as opposed to another, just like we would hopefully choose one good food over another bad food, right? They get more nectar, more food, it's richer, it's better energy, so they go to that flower. And that's the flower they're going to be making the honey from, right? The nectar. So that's how and then that flower stops blooming. The next season, we're into midsummer now, a different flower starts to bloom, and then the bees will make that honey. And the beekeepers are timing their harvests, right? They're very specific in the moment they harvest, and they're watching the nectar flow. That's how they get monofloral honeys. So, next question. People will ask me, can I tell the honeys apart in a blind taste test? Do I really know which ones are which, and can I really tell the differences? I had the same question for myself early on when I was falling in love with these honeys and trying them on everything, and I thought, oh, I wonder if I could really, how well do I know my honeys? And when my beekeepers came up to visit for a trade show, I had them do the blind taste test on me, and I got it with flying colors. Knocked it out. Yes, I can tell the difference between them, especially now after all this time. I certainly know which ones are which. They're very distinguishable for me, and I love the different characteristics, and I know which ones are which. See if you guys can do that. I'd love to hear back from you on that. Next question. What's the sugar content of these honeys? People see them thicker, and they have bigger, thicker crystallization that you can feel. It's a texture. And people say, oh, what's the sugar content? It must have more sugar. It doesn't have more sugar. All honeys are going to be very, very similar in their sugar content. And in fact, the thicker the honey is, it's not necessarily a determining factor in how much sugar it has. So, same as any other honey. People ask me, what's the best use for these honeys? What's the best one to use for coffee? What's the best one to use for smoothies, or to glaze on a fish or a chicken, or to put on toast? I have my general recommendations, but ultimately it's up to you. Every palate's different. It's up to your preferences. I have my favorite, which is Ulmo honey. Ulmo honey is definitely my favorite. The Valdivian this year was extremely good as well. But you know what? Tineo is my favorite honey for cheese. Rainforest honey is good for coffee because it's not too flowery. It just sweetens it up a little bit, doesn't change the flavor. But I like the ulmo to add floweriness to kind of the floral, sensorial experience to the food. So it depends on your preference. So next question, what makes the honey antibacterial? I talk about this in another episode. I'm going to make you guys go there. But the main thing is the hydrogen peroxide content. Okay, so the last one we're going to do. A lot of people ask, once they start tasting the honeys and they really taste different from each other and very different from other honeys that people are used to, they say, so they're not flavoring? You don't flavor these honeys? What are you putting something in them? No, absolutely not. That would be adulterated honey, which is a thing. If you have not discovered this yet, watch the first episode of the Netflix series Rotten, or just do some research on Google. No, these flavors are totally natural. Those are native characteristics of the nectar coming through in the honey. So the nectar is what makes the honey essentially, right? The bee is taking the moisture content out of it, and it becomes honey with a few enzymes. And voila, you get honey, and it has some of the characteristics of the nectar, which makes it flowery or more herbaceous or earthy, etc. And that's the natural stuff in the honey. So there's some FAQs for you. I hope that's helpful. If you have other questions or things that have been really tickling your curiosity, please send them my way, and I'd be happy to answer them. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.